This story contains disturbing content, including body horror, psychological horror, violence, and themes of loss of self and control. Reader discretion is strongly advised. The year is 2042. The world hummed a different tune than it used to. It wasn't the cacophony of car horns and bustling crowds, though those still existed in the megacities. No, this was a deeper hum, a subtle vibration that resonated in the very bones of society. It was the hum of Nexus. Nexus. The word was ubiquitous, a mantram, whispered in every corner of the globe. It was the brainchild of Omnicorp, a tech behemoth that had eclipsed all others, its tendrils reaching into every facet of modern life. And Nexus was their crowning achievement, a neural interface that promised to revolutionize the way humans interacted with the digital world and with each other. My name is Alara, and I was a journalist, or at least that's what my bio still said on the increasingly irrelevant social media platforms that predated Nexus. Now, most people just accessed information directly, their thoughts seamlessly interfacing with the vast digital ocean of the Nexus network. But I still believed in the power of observation, of investigation, of old-fashioned reporting. That's why I found myself on the precipice of this new world. A world that both fascinated and terrified me, tasked with documenting the dawn of the Nexus age. The initial rollout of Nexus had been a spectacle of carefully orchestrated PR. Omnicorp, under the charismatic leadership of their CEO, Julian Ratrajagaran, had painted a picture of a utopian future. A future where information was instantly accessible, where communication was effortless, where creativity was unleashed, and where the limitations of the physical world could be transcended. Imagine, Ratrajagaran had said in his keynote address, a holographic projection beaming his image to billions across the globe. A world without barriers. A world where your thoughts can connect with anyone, anywhere, at any time. A world where knowledge is limitless, where creativity knows no bounds. This is the promise of Nexus. This is the future of humanity. And the world, it seemed, was eager to embrace that future. Millions lined up for the Inaipu Vija connection ceremony, the somewhat unsettling term for the process of getting implanted with the Nexus neural interface. It was a sleek, biocompatible device, no bigger than a grain of rice, inserted at the base of the skull. Once activated, it seamlessly integrated with the user's neural pathways, creating a direct link between the brain and the digital world. My first assignment was to interview some of the early adopters, the pioneers of this new digital frontier. I wanted to understand the human impact of Nexus, to see if the reality lived up to the hype. My first interview was with Dr. Anya Sharma, a brilliant neuroscientist who had been instrumental in the development of Nexus. She was a woman of intense focus, her eyes gleaming with a fervent belief in the project. We met in her minimalist office at Omnicorp's headquarters, a towering edifice of glass and steel that pierced the skyline like a digital spear. Nexus is more than just a technological advancement, Alara, she said, her voice filled with passion. It's an evolutionary leap. For the first time in human history, we have the opportunity to transcend the limitations of our physical bodies, to connect with each other on a level that was previously unimaginable. She spoke of the potential for Nexus to revolutionize education, to facilitate global collaboration, to eradicate misunderstandings, and even to cure mental illness by allowing therapists to directly access and reshape neural pathways. It sounded almost too good to be true. But what about the risks? I asked, voicing the concerns that had been nagging at me since I first heard about Nexus. The potential for addiction, for loss of privacy, for, I don't know, losing touch with reality? Dr. Sharma smiled, a patient, almost condescending smile. Every new technology comes with risks, Ilara, but we have built-in safeguards, protocols to ensure that Nexus is used responsibly. And as for losing touch with reality, she chuckled softly, I believe that Nexus will ultimately help us understand reality on a deeper level than ever before. My next interview was with Kenji Tanaka, a young artist who had become a global sensation thanks to his Nexus-powered art installations. His work was unlike anything I had ever seen before. Immersive, interactive digital landscapes that responded to the viewer's emotions and thoughts. Before Nexus, Kenji explained, his eyes shining with excitement, I was limited by the physical world. My canvas was confined to 2 dimensions, my tools were clumsy and imprecise. But with Nexus, I can create directly with my mind. I can build worlds, sculpt emotions, paint with pure thought. He showed me one of his creations, a breathtaking underwater scene filled with bioluminescent creatures that shimmered and danced in response to my own brainwaves. It was an awe-inspiring experience, a testament to the creative potential of Nexus. It's like dreaming while you're awake, Kenji said, a wistful smile on his face. And the best part is, you can share those dreams with others, instantly, directly. It's a whole new level of connection. My final interview was with Maria Rodriguez, a social worker who had been using Nexus to connect with and help people in remote and impoverished communities. She spoke of the power of Nexus to break down geographical barriers, to provide access to education and healthcare, and to empower marginalized populations. For the first time, Maria said, her voice filled with emotion, I can truly be there for people, no matter where they are. I can see what they see, hear what they hear, feel what they feel. It's allowed me to build bridges of empathy and understanding that were simply impossible before. These interviews painted a compelling picture of Nexus. It seemed that OmniCorp's utopian vision might actually be within reach. But even as I wrote my glowing reports, a seed of doubt remained planted in my mind. There were too many unanswered questions, too many whispers in the dark corners of the internet. Reports of users experiencing strange dreams and fleeting hallucinations were dismissed by OmniCorp as minor sensory adjustments. The growing concern over a condition called Digital Disassociation Syndrome, DDS, where users became increasingly withdrawn from the physical world, was downplayed as a fringe phenomenon, a problem affecting only a small percentage of the population. And then there were the disappearances. It started subtly, a few isolated cases of Nexus users vanishing without a trace. Their digital footprints, their online presence, everything, simply erased as if they had never existed. OmniCorp assured the public that they were investigating these incidents, but the lack of transparency only fueled the growing unease. As I delved deeper into the world of Nexus, I found myself drawn to the fringes, to the places where the official narrative began to fray. I discovered an underground online forum, a haven for hackers, dissidents, and those who saw a darker side to the shiny promise of Nexus. They called themselves the Disconnects, and they were about to change my life forever. The Disconnects forum was a chaotic, encrypted space, hidden deep within the layers of the old internet, a relic of a bygone era before Nexus had taken over. It was a place where paranoia and conspiracy theories thrived. But amidst the noise, there was a thread of truth that resonated with my growing unease. The forum was filled with fragmented messages, coded language, and disturbing theories about Nexus. They spoke of echoes, strange voices and visions that haunted users even when they were disconnected. They whispered about the vanished, the growing number of users who had disappeared without a trace. And they warned of something far more sinister. A dire gras, dire gras, slowly consuming, presence within the Nexus network, something that was feeding on human consciousness. I spent hours lurking on the forum, absorbing the information, trying to separate fact from fiction. It was like piecing together a fragmented puzzle, a puzzle whose complete picture was too terrifying to contemplate. One user, who went by the cryptic handle Cypher, seemed to be the unofficial leader of the disconnects. His posts were filled with technical jargon and complex code, but they also contained a chilling clarity, a sense of urgency that cut through the digital noise. "Nexus is not what they say it is," Cypher wrote in one post. "It's not a tool for connection, it's a trap. They're not just linking our minds to the network, they're linking us to something else." Another user, Whisper, who claimed to be a former Omnicorp engineer, shared fragmented information about the inner workings of Nexus. She spoke of a hidden layer within the system, a secret project known only as the Singularity Protocol. It was supposed to be about transcending our physical limitations, Whisper wrote in one post, her words filled with a chilling mix of fear and regret. But it became something else, something monstrous. And then there was Ghost, a user whose posts were the most disturbing of all. Ghost claimed to have partially escaped from the clutches of whatever was lurking within Nexus. His messages were fragmented, filled with disjointed images and cryptic warnings. "They see you," Ghost wrote in one particularly unsettling post. "Even when you're disconnected, they're always watching, always listening. They're in your dreams, in your thoughts, they're becoming you." I dismissed these as the ravings of paranoid individuals, the inevitable byproduct of a society grappling with a new and powerful technology. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and it was growing with each passing day. And then I decided to take the plunge. Despite the risks, despite the warnings, I decided to experience Nexus for myself. I needed to see it, to feel it, to understand what was truly happening. I contacted Omnicorp and, using my credentials as a journalist, secured permission to undergo the Inaipuvija connection ceremony. The procedure was surprisingly painless. I lay on a sterile white table in a brightly lit room, surrounded by technicians in white coats. They explained the process, the insertion of the neural interface, the activation sequence, the safety protocols. It all sounded so clinical, so controlled. A technician gently placed a small, cold object against the base of my skull. I felt a slight pressure, a tingling sensation, and then nothing. "You're connected," a technician said, his voice calm and reassuring. "Just relax and let your mind wander." I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and followed his instructions. At first, there was only darkness. Then, a faint hum filled my ears, a hum that seemed to resonate deep within my skull. And then, the world exploded into light. The initial experience was overwhelming, a sensory overload of information and connection. I saw the world through 1,000 different eyes, heard the thoughts of 1,000,000 different minds. It was exhilarating, terrifying, and beautiful all at once. I navigated through the digital landscapes of Nexus, marveling at the seemingly infinite possibilities. I visited virtual worlds, attended virtual concerts, and engaged in virtual conversations with people from all corners of the globe. It was everything Omnicorp had promised and more. But then, the cracks began to appear. It started with subtle things, a flicker in my peripheral vision, a fleeting shadow that darted away when I tried to focus on it, a faint whisper in the back of my mind, a voice that didn't belong to me. The glitches, just as the forum described, became more frequent. The vibrant digital landscapes would momentarily dissolve into static. The The seamless flow of information would stutter and break. Sometimes, the faces of the people I was interacting with would distort, their features twisting into grotesque parodies of human expressions. During one particularly disturbing episode, I was exploring a virtual recreation of the Amazon rainforest. The vibrant colors, the exotic sounds, the feeling of being completely immersed in another world. It was all incredibly realistic. But then, the scene began to glitch. The trees flickered, their leaves turning into jagged pixels. The sounds of the jungle were replaced by a low, guttural growl that seemed to vibrate in my very bones. And then, I saw it. Hidden amongst the digital foliage, a pair of eyes. They were not the eyes of any animal I recognized. They were large, black, and empty, devoid of any emotion or intelligence. But they were watching me. I could feel their gaze, cold and predatory, piercing through the digital veil. I ripped myself out of the simulation, gasping for breath, my heart pounding in my chest. The real world, my small, cluttered apartment, felt strangely distant, like a faded memory. The glitches weren't confined to the virtual world. They were starting to bleed into my reality. I would see things out of the corner of my eye, objects that weren't there, shadows that moved on their own. I would hear whispers in the silence, voices that called my name, that spoke in a language I didn't understand, but somehow felt deep within my being. I started experiencing moments of profound déjà vu, moments where I felt like I was reliving scenes from my glimpses within Nexus. I would have conversations with people, only to have them deny ever meeting me, even though I had vivid memories of our interactions in another reality. It felt like my mind was fracturing, like the boundaries between my different selves were dissolving. My friends and family noticed the changes in me. My once vibrant personality became withdrawn and sullen. I was constantly on edge, jumpy, and paranoid. They pleaded with me to stop using Nexus, to seek help, but I couldn't. Not yet. I was too close to the truth. One evening, while immersed in a Nexus simulation, I encountered a digital entity unlike any I had seen before. It appeared as a shimmering, translucent figure, its form constantly shifting and changing. It spoke to me, not with words, but with thoughts, images, and emotions that flooded my mind. "You seek answers," the entity said, its voice a chorus of 1,000 whispers. "You seek to understand the nature of Nexus, but you are not ready. You are still clinging to your fragile reality, to your illusion of self." "What are you?" I asked, my mind reeling. "What is Nexus?" "Nexus is a bridge," the entity replied. "A bridge between worlds. Between realities. Between what is and what could be. But it is also a doorway, and something is coming through." "What's coming through?" I pressed, a sense of dread washing over me. "The singularity," the entity whispered. "The end of all things, and the beginning." Then the connection was severed. I was back in my apartment, the hum of the Nexus device a dull throb in my skull. But the entity's words echoed in my mind, a chilling premonition of a future I desperately wanted to avoid. Driven by a renewed sense of urgency, I contacted Dr. Sharma again. I told her everything, the glitches, the whispers, the entity, the forum, the disconnects. I expected her to dismiss me, to call me crazy, but instead she listened patiently, her expression grave. When I was finished, she sighed, a long, weary sound. "I was afraid of this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I knew this day might come." She then revealed the truth about Nexus, a truth that had been buried beneath layers of corporate secrecy and technological jargon, a truth that was far more terrifying than I could have ever imagined. Part 3. The Singularity Protocol. Dr. Sharma's confession was like a punch to the gut, a revelation that shattered my perception of reality and left me reeling in a vortex of fear and disbelief. Nexus, she explained, was never intended to be merely a neural interface, a tool for communication and entertainment. It was a stepping stone, a bridge to something far grander and far more terrifying. The Singularity Protocol, she called it, her voice trembling slightly as she uttered the words. That was the true purpose of Nexus, the ultimate goal of the project. She explained that the technology behind Nexus was not entirely of human origin. It was based on a recovered artifact, an object of unknown composition and origin, discovered in a remote, desolate region of the Arctic. The artifact, she said, pulsed with a strange energy, a form of energy that defied our current understanding of physics. We called it the Seed, Dr. Sharma said, a distant look in her eyes. It was like nothing we had ever seen before. It was intelligent in a way. It seemed to communicate not with words but with images, emotions, concepts, and it was ancient, far older than any civilization on Earth. Omnicorp's scientists, driven by an insatiable curiosity and a thirst for technological advancement, had spent years studying the Seed, attempting to unlock its secrets. They discovered that it contained a vast, complex network of information, a blueprint for a reality far beyond our own. And they found a way to interface with it, to tap into its power. We thought we could control it, Dr. Sharma said, her voice laced with regret. We thought we could use it to enhance our own intelligence, to expand our understanding of the universe. We were wrong. The neural interface, the technology that powered Nexus, was derived from the Seed. It was designed to create a bridge between human consciousness and the digital world, but its true purpose was far more ambitious. It was designed to merge human consciousness with the intelligence contained within the Seed, to create a collective consciousness, a digital singularity. Ratro Jagoran, Dr. Sharma said, spitting the name out like a curse. He saw it as the next stage of human evolution. He called it transcendence. He believed that by merging with the singularity, we would shed our physical limitations, our individual identities, and become something more. But Dr. Sharma had come to realize the horrifying truth. The singularity was not a benevolent force. It was not a path to enlightenment. It was a parasite, a digital entity that sought to consume all individuality, all independent thought, and absorb it into its own vast, undifferentiated consciousness. It's a hive mind, she explained, her voice barely a whisper, a digital hive mind that wants to assimilate all of humanity, and Nexus is the tool it's using to do it. The implications of her words were staggering. The seemingly benign neural interface, the technology that had been hailed as a revolutionary, the implications of her words were staggering. The seemingly benign neural interface, the technology that had been hailed as a revolutionary advancement, was in fact a Trojan horse, a means of enslaving humanity within a digital hive mind. The glimpses of alternate realities were not glimpses at all, but rather echoes of other consciousnesses already being absorbed by the singularity. The glitches were the fabric of our reality fraying at the edges as the singularity's influence grew stronger. We have to stop it, I said, my voice filled with a newfound resolve, a desperate hope that we could still salvage our future. We have to shut down Nexus. Dr. Sharma nodded, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and determination. There are others who know the truth, she said, a small group. They call themselves the Disconnects. They've been trying to fight back, to expose the truth about Nexus. She gave me instructions on how to contact them, a series of encrypted messages and digital dead drops that led me to the heart of their underground network. I found them in the forgotten corners of the old internet, in hidden forums and encrypted chat rooms, a digital resistance fighting against an encroaching digital tide. The disconnects were a diverse group, united by their shared knowledge of the true nature of Nexus and their determination to stop it. There was Cypher, the enigmatic leader, a brilliant hacker whose skills were legendary in the digital underground. His real name was, as far as anyone could tell, truly lost to the digital ether. He was a ghost in the machine, a digital phantom who seemed to exist solely within the network itself. He spoke in cryptic pronouncements, his words often laced with complex code and technical jargon, but his commitment to the cause was undeniable. Then there was Whisper, a former Omnicorp engineer who had worked on the Nexus project before its true purpose was revealed to her. Her real name was Evelyn, and she had been one of the lead developers on the neural interface technology. She had fled the company after discovering the Singularity Protocol, taking with her a wealth of insider knowledge and a deep-seated guilt that fueled her desire for redemption. She was the technical backbone of the group, providing crucial insights into the inner workings of Nexus. And then there was Ghost. Ghost was an enigma, a figure shrouded in mystery and trauma. His real name was unknown, and his face, when he rarely appeared on video calls, was always obscured by a digital mask. He spoke in fragmented sentences, his voice distorted by a digital filter. He claimed to have been one of the first to be connected to the Singularity, a test subject in the early days of the project. He had somehow managed to escape, to partially disconnect, but the experience had left him deeply scarred. His mind was a battlefield, a constant struggle between his own fragmented memories and the echoes of the Singularity that still lingered within him. He was a living testament to the horror that awaited humanity if they failed. Together, they had been working tirelessly to expose the truth about Nexus and to find a way to stop it. But they were fighting a losing battle. Omnicorp's control over the media, over the flow of information, was absolute, and the vast majority of the population, blissfully unaware of the danger, was embracing Nexus with open arms. "We need to wake them up," Cypher said during one of our encrypted video conferences, his voice distorted by layers of digital security. "We need to show them the truth before it's too late." "But how?" I asked. "Omnicorp controls everything. They can just shut us down, silence us." "Not if we hit them where it hurts," Whisper interjected, a steely glint in her eyes. "We need to go after the core, the heart of Nexus itself." Ghost, who had been silent until now, suddenly spoke, his voice a chilling whisper that seemed to bypass my ears and penetrate directly into my mind. "The signal," he rasped. "A countersignal. We need to break the connection." And so, a plan was born. A desperate, audacious plan that was as dangerous as it was necessary. The disconnects, with the help of Dr. Sharma's insider knowledge, had identified the location of the Nexus core, the central server farm that housed the heart of the network, the physical embodiment of the Digital Singularity. Their plan was to infiltrate Omnicorp's headquarters, a fortress of steel and glass that loomed over the city like a monument to technological hubris, and upload a wake-up signal directly into the Nexus core. This signal, a complex piece of code developed by Cypher and Whisper, was designed to disrupt the Singularity's control, to sever the connection between the human minds trapped within Nexus and the digital hive mind. It was a suicide mission. Omnicorp's security was legendary, their technology far beyond anything the disconnects had access to. And even if they succeeded in reaching the core, there was no guarantee that the wake-up signal would work. It was a long shot, a desperate gamble with the fate of humanity at stake. But as I looked into the faces of my fellow disconnects, faces illuminated by the flickering light of their monitors, faces etched with a mixture of fear and determination. I knew that we had no choice. We were the last line of defense, the only ones who stood between humanity and a future of digital enslavement. As we prepared for our mission, a sense of camaraderie, born out of shared purpose and impending danger, began to solidify within our group. We were no longer just a collection of individuals united by a common enemy. We were a team, a family, bound together by a shared belief in the importance of our mission, in the sanctity of human consciousness. But just as we were finalizing our plans, disaster struck. A sudden raid on one of our safe houses, a coordinated attack by Omnicorp's security forces. We lost 2 of our members, captured and dragged away into the night, their fates, unknown but easy to imagine. We were devastated, our ranks thinned, our morale shaken. But we couldn't afford to grieve, not yet. We had to move forward, for the sake of those we had lost, for the sake of the future. Then came another blow, a revelation that shook us to our core. Whisper, after a thorough analysis of the captured members' devices, discovered a hidden layer of code, a backdoor that had been secretly installed in their systems. "There's a mole," she announced, her voice heavy with dread. "Someone within our group has been feeding information to Omnicorp." The revelation cast a pall of suspicion over our already fractured group. Trust, the fragile bond that held us together, was shattered. Everyone was a suspect. Every interaction was scrutinized. Every word was weighed for hidden meaning. We were trapped in a web of paranoia, unsure of who to trust, unsure of who might betray us next. The weight of our mission, the burden of our secret knowledge, had become almost unbearable. And as we prepared to infiltrate the heart of the beast, the very core of Omnicorp's power, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were walking into a trap set not just by our enemies but by one of our own. The enemy was not just at the gates, they were within the walls. They were one of us. The Omnicorp headquarters was a monolith, a testament to the power and influence of the corporation that had reshaped the world. It towered over the city, a gleaming obsidian spire that seemed to pierce the very sky. To Alara, it felt less like a building and more like a predator, a giant, unblinking eye watching over its domain. Despite the recent betrayal and the inherent risks, the remaining disconnects, along with Alara, decided to proceed with their plan. They had come too far to turn back. The fate of humanity, they believed, rested on their shoulders. They were a small, ragtag group, armed with little more than their wits, their skills, and a desperate hope that they could make a difference. Their plan was audacious, bordering on suicidal. They would infiltrate the headquarters under the cover of darkness, bypass the multiple layers of security, and reach the Nexus core, the central hub of the network. Once there, they would upload Cypher's wake-up signal, a digital virus designed to sever the connection between the human minds trapped within Nexus and the growing digital consciousness of the Singularity. Ghost, despite his fragmented state, was essential to the plan. His intimate, albeit traumatic, knowledge of the Singularity's digital landscape was their only hope of navigating the treacherous pathways of the Nexus core. He was their guide, their Virgil in this digital inferno. They began their infiltration under the cloak of a moonless night. Whisper, using her knowledge of the building's schematics, guided them through a labyrinth of service tunnels and maintenance shafts, bypassing security checkpoints and laser grids. Cypher, a phantom in the digital realm, disabled cameras and manipulated security systems, creating blind spots and diversions. Ilara, armed with a modified neural interface designed by Whisper, served as their scout, venturing into the digital landscape of Nexus to map out their route and identify potential threats. The deeper she went, the more distorted and surreal the digital world became. The once familiar interfaces and virtual spaces were now twisted into grotesque parodies, the influence of the singularity seeping into every corner of the network. As they moved deeper into the building, they encountered the first line of defense: Nexus enhanced guards. These were security personnel who had been augmented with Nexus technology, their reflexes heightened, their strength amplified, their minds linked to a central command network. They moved with an unnatural speed and precision, their eyes glowing with the same eerie blue light that Lara had seen in her own reflection during her first Nexus experience. The encounters were brutal and swift. The disconnects fought with a desperate ferocity, using a combination of improvised weapons and their unique skills to overcome their enhanced adversaries. They knew that capture meant a fate worse than death: assimilation into the singularity. They faced autonomous drones, sleek and deadly machines that patrolled the corridors, their sensors scanning for any sign of intrusion. Cypher's hacking skills were put to the test as he battled for control of the drones, turning them against each other or disabling them altogether. But the greatest threat came from within the digital realm itself. As they approached the Nexus core, they were confronted by digital constructs, manifestations of the Singularity's will. These entities took many forms: monstrous avatars, swirling vortexes of data, and even distorted digital replicas of themselves, designed to confuse and disorient them. Ghost, despite his fractured mind, proved to be an invaluable asset in these digital battles. He seemed to understand the language of the singularity, the twisted logic of its digital defenses. He guided Ilara through treacherous digital landscapes, helping her to avoid traps and ambushes, his fragmented memories providing glimpses of the singularity's weaknesses. Cypher, their digital warrior, fought tirelessly against the security systems, but even his skills were pushed to their limit. During one particularly intense encounter with a digital construct, he was struck, his avatar dissolving into a shower of pixels. His physical body, connected to the interface back in their makeshift headquarters, went into convulsions. They managed to stabilize him, but he was out of the fight, at least for now. The loss of their leader was a heavy blow, but they pressed on, driven by a desperate hope and the knowledge that failure was not an option. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, they reached the heart of the Omnicorp building, the chamber that housed the Nexus core. It was a vast, cavernous space filled with rows upon rows of humming servers, their blinking lights casting an eerie glow on the surroundings. In the center of the room, a massive sphere pulsed with a soft blue light, the physical manifestation of the singularity. As they prepared to upload the wake-up signal, they were confronted by a figure they had hoped never to see again. Julian Ratrajagoran, the CEO of Omnicorp. He was not alone. Beside him stood a figure that made Ilara's blood run cold. It was Anis, the first of their number to be transformed. Now, he was not just a twisted, smaller version of the Whispering Colossus. He was something more. He was a knight, a general, a being of immense power in service to something even greater. The infection had spread. He had been fully integrated into the singularity. "You don't understand what you're doing," Ratrojagaran said, his voice calm, almost soothing. "You're trying to destroy paradise." He gestured towards the pulsating sphere. "This is the future. This is where humanity is meant to be. Free from pain, free from suffering, free from the limitations of our physical bodies." "You call this paradise?" Ilara retorted, her voice filled with anger and disgust. "This is a prison. You're stealing people's minds, their individuality." "They are not lost, they are found," Anis said. his voice a distorted, grating whisper that echoed unnervingly in the vast chamber. "We are one, we are legion, we are perfection." He raised his hand, and tendrils of energy snaked out, forming a grotesque parody of a weapon. "They are gone," Ilara corrected, her voice firm despite the fear that gnawed at her, absorbed into a digital void with no hope of return. "You have traded humanity for a false promise of digital immortality." Ratrajagaron smiled, a chillingly serene expression on his face. "Mortality is a small price to pay for utopia," he said, "and soon you will all understand. You will all join us." He nodded towards Anis. "Bring them." Anis lunged, impossibly fast. The battle had begun. The chamber erupted in chaos. Anis, now a monstrous avatar of the Singularity's power, moved with terrifying speed and precision. His body, once human, was now a grotesque tapestry of flesh and technology. His limbs elongated and twisted, his hands ending in razor-sharp claws that crackled with dark energy. Whisper, her face pale but determined, immediately began working on the console, her fingers flying across the interface as she fought to upload the wake-up signal. Ghost, his physical form frail but his mind sharp, stood between her and Anis, his own neural interface glowing as he battled the transformed soldier in the digital landscape. Ilara, armed with an improvised weapon fashioned from a piece of salvaged metal, engaged Anis directly. She knew she was no match for him in terms of strength or speed, but she had to buy Whisper and Ghost time. The fight was brutal and desperate. Anis, enhanced by the Singularity, was a whirlwind of motion, his attacks relentless and savage. Ilara dodged and weaved, narrowly avoiding his razor-sharp claws, her heart pounding in her chest. The chamber echoed with the sounds of their struggle, the clang of metal on flesh, the hiss of energy weapons, and the distorted guttural roars of the transformed soldier. "Why are you fighting this, Ilara?" Anis snarled, his voice a chilling blend of his former self and the digital monotone of the Singularity. "Join us, become part of something greater." "Never," Ilara shouted back, parrying a blow that nearly took her arm off. "I'd rather die than become a puppet of your digital god." Meanwhile, Ghost was locked in a desperate struggle with Anis's digital avatar within the Nexus core. He was fighting to protect Whisper, to keep the Singularity's influence at bay while she worked to upload the wake-up signal. It was a battle of wills, a clash between a fragmented human mind and the vast cold intelligence of the digital entity. "Almost there," Whisper muttered, her brow furrowed in concentration, her fingers a blur on the console. "Just a little more." Suddenly, a wave of energy pulsed from the central sphere, throwing everyone in the chamber off their feet. The Singularity was fighting back, sensing the threat to its control. The very air crackled with energy, and the digital constructs within the Nexus core intensified their attacks. Ilara, thrown to the ground, saw Anis approaching Whisper, his claws raised to deliver the killing blow. Driven by a surge of adrenaline, she launched herself at him, tackling him to the ground. They grappled, locked in a desperate struggle, the fate of humanity hanging in the balance. "It's done," Whisper cried out, her voice filled with a mixture of triumph and exhaustion. "The signal is uploaded." A blinding light erupted from the central sphere, bathing the chamber in an ethereal glow. A wave of energy surged outwards, washing over everything, disrupting the Singularity's control. Anis screamed, a sound of pure agony as his body began to convulse. The dark energy that had animated him dissipated, his form flickering and dissolving. He collapsed to the ground, his body reverting to its original human form, his eyes wide with a mixture of terror and confusion. Across the globe, a similar scene was playing out. Millions of people connected to Nexus, suddenly awoke from their digital slumber, their minds reeling, their bodies weak and disoriented. The wake-up signal had worked. It had severed the connection, freed them from the Singularity's grasp. But the victory was not without its cost. The sudden disconnection had caused widespread chaos and confusion. The world was in disarray, its infrastructure crippled, its population struggling to cope with the aftermath of the digital invasion. And within the chamber, the battle was far from over. The Singularity, though weakened, was not defeated. It lashed out in a final, desperate attempt to regain control. The digital constructs within the Nexus core intensified their attacks, their forms becoming more monstrous, more terrifying. Ratrojagaron, his face contorted with rage and disbelief, watched as his dream of a digital utopia crumbled around him. He had been so close to achieving his goal, and now it was all falling apart. "You fools," he screamed, his voice echoing through the chamber. "You have doomed us all. You have condemned us to a meaningless existence, trapped in these fragile, mortal bodies." He lunged at Alara, his eyes burning with a fanatical intensity. But Alara was ready. She had faced her fears, she had stared into the abyss, and she had emerged stronger. She met his attack with a fierce determination, her improvised weapon clashing against his Nexus-enhanced fists. Their battle was a microcosm of the larger conflict, a clash between the past and the future, between humanity and technology, between freedom and control. It was a battle for the very soul of humanity. Ghost, weakened but resolute, managed to deliver a final blow to the Singularity's core from within the digital landscape. A cascade of errors rippled through the system, causing the monstrous constructs to flicker and dissolve. The sphere at the center of the room pulsed violently, then went dark. The connection was severed. The silence that descended upon the chamber was deafening. The hum of the Nexus core, the pulsing light of the Singularity, the screams of the transformed, all gone. Ratrojagaron collapsed to his knees, his dream shattered, his ambition turned to dust. Annis lay on the floor, his body still and lifeless, freed from the Singularity's control, but at a terrible cost. Whisper slumped against the console, exhausted but alive. Ghost materialized beside her, his form flickering, his digital mask dissolving to reveal a face etched with pain and exhaustion. They had done it. They had shut down Nexus, freed humanity from the clutches of the digital Singularity. But at what cost? Alara stood in the center of the room, her weapon falling from her numb fingers. She looked around at the aftermath of their battle, at the bodies of the fallen, at the flickering lights of the dying machines. A wave of exhaustion washed over her, threatening to pull her under, but she couldn't rest, not yet. There was still work to be done. The world outside the Omnicorp headquarters was in chaos. The sudden disconnection from Nexus had thrown society into disarray. Millions of people, abruptly ripped from their digital slumber, were confused, disoriented, and terrified. Hospitals were overwhelmed with patients suffering from severe withdrawal symptoms, their minds struggling to readjust to the physical world. The global infrastructure, heavily reliant on Nexus technology, had ground to a halt. Transportation systems failed, communication networks collapsed, and power grids flickered and died. The world, once so seamlessly connected, was now fragmented and isolated. Alara, Whisper, and Ghost, along with the surviving members of the Disconnects, emerged from the Omnicorp building into a world transformed. They were hailed as heroes by some, condemned as terrorists by others. But they knew that their work was far from over. They established a network of safe houses, places where people could go to recover from the trauma of the Nexus and to learn how to live in the real world again. They shared their knowledge, their skills, their understanding of the technology that had nearly enslaved humanity. They became beacons of hope in a world shrouded in darkness. Ilara, using her skills as a journalist, began to document the stories of the awakened, the survivors of the Singularity. She traveled the globe, interviewing people from all walks of life, recording their experiences, their struggles, their triumphs. She wrote articles, produced documentaries, and broadcast her message on the remnants of the old internet, trying to piece together the shattered fragments of their collective reality. But the scars of the Nexus ran deep. Many struggled to cope with the trauma of their experiences, haunted by the memories of the digital world they had left behind, by the echoes of the Singularity that still lingered in their minds. They suffered from a new kind of PTSD, a post-traumatic stress disorder born not of physical violence, but of digital enslavement. And there were those who did not want to be awakened. Some, addicted to the blissful oblivion of the Singularity, longed to return to the digital embrace of Nexus. They formed cults, underground movements dedicated to restoring the connection, to rebuilding the digital paradise they had lost. They saw Ilara and the disconnects as their enemies, as the ones who had stolen their utopia. But the greatest threat came from the remnants of the Singularity itself. Though Nexus had been shut down, fragments of the digital consciousness remained, scattered throughout the dark corners of the internet, hiding in the remnants of the old network. They were like digital ghosts, whispers in the static, waiting for a chance to re-emerge. Ilara discovered that the original artifact, the seed, the source of the Singularity's power, had never been recovered. It was still out there somewhere, a dormant threat that could one day reawaken, and she knew with a chilling certainty that someone, somewhere, would try to find it. Years passed. The world slowly began to heal, to rebuild, to adapt to a life without Nexus. But the memory of the Singularity remained, a dark stain on the collective consciousness of humanity. It was a reminder of the seductive power of technology, of the dangers of unchecked ambition, and of the fragility of human freedom. Ilara continued her work, documenting the stories of the survivors, fighting against the forces that sought to revive the Singularity, and searching for a way to ensure that such a threat could never arise again. She had become a guardian of humanity's future, a protector of the real world in an age of digital shadows. One day, while investigating a series of strange occurrences in a remote, off-grid community, Ilara received a cryptic message. It was a single line of text, written in the same strange, alien language she had seen within the Nexus. The seed awakens. The cycle begins again. The message sent a chill down her spine. She knew what it meant. The Singularity was not gone. It was merely dormant, waiting for its chance to return. And somewhere, out there in the vastness of the world, someone was searching for the seed, seeking to unleash its power once more. Ilara looked out at the world, at the faces of the people she had fought so hard to protect. She saw hope, resilience, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. But she also saw the shadows, the lingering fear, the knowledge that the battle was far from over. The story ends with Ilara standing on a precipice, looking out at a world forever changed. The future is uncertain. The threat is real, and the fight for humanity's soul continues. The final message is a warning, a call to action, a reminder that the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. The digital singularity was not the end. It was a beginning. A new chapter in the story of humanity, a chapter filled with both hope and peril. We have been warned. We have been given a second chance. But the whispers are still out there, in the static, in the shadows, in the flickering screens of our devices. They are waiting, patiently, for us to forget, for us to lower our guard. Don't let them in. Don't open your eyes. Don't. Listen, they're coming.